Welcome to Fortune Forecast. You are in my book playlist where we are going through the pages of the book titled How to Unlock Your Subconscious Mind Through the Science of Mental Analysis. The book was written by Elsie Lincoln Benedict and Ralph Payne Benedict. It was published in 1921 and it is in the public domain. If you're new to my channel, I'm glad you found us. And to our Fortune family, welcome back. I am not going to expand much on the previous lesson. It was, what can I say, to me, very deep in a very layman terms about love, our love affections, and the choosing of mates, and this deeper little hang-ups that we may have in love. So I will leave that to you. Would love to hear your comments. Other than that, let's move on to Lesson 6. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, or grab your wine. Sit back. Let's get started. A poem by Edwin Markham. Why build these cities glorious if man unbuilded goes? In vain we build the world unless the builder also grows. We all are blind until we see that in the human plan nothing is worth the making if it does not make the man. Success through the subconscious. Success is, next to love, the most vital matter in one's life. For only through successful accomplishment of some nature can civilized men and women be thoroughly happy. Not only does success fulfill a great personal need by aiding in the self-expression of the individual, but through it he contributes to the progress of the world. These two elements are necessary to the happiness of any normal man or woman. First, the normal individual desires self-expression. But a close second is his sincere desire to help humanity. The latter is not a mere margin which he wishes to dispose of, but a natural demand of his success instinct. Civilized man has two roles and is taught early in life what they are. He is himself, and himself is ever his primary consideration. But he is also a part of society, a tiny section in a great mosaic. The average individual thinks chiefly of that little self-section, not so much because he is selfish or narrow, but because his own troubles, problems, and difficulties are so great he has little time, energy, or thought left over to give to the general pattern. The greatest result of mental analysis is that it is helping the individual to untangle his own troubles. The moment this is done, the rest follows. He awakens to the needs of his fellows, his families first, then his friends, next his acquaintances, and in time, the world's. The herd and happiness. Every normal human being, to be happy, must know that he is a part of the big world. One need not be out in the world, like the father who meets the public in his work, in order to have this gratifying realization. The loving mother, the understanding wife in her little apartment, knows that in doing her work, she is directly connecting with the work of the world through her husband, that she is the quartermaster, the Red Cross, and munition plant behind the lines. Subconsciously, every such woman demands that her man make a success of his work out there in the front trenches, for her sake as well as his own. She does not like to feel that all her efforts are being expended for a losing army. Life at loose ends. Many more lives than we realize are ruined from a lack of definite connection with the world of real work. The individual himself, and especially if it be a herself, often wonders what is wrong and goes through years or a lifetime without realizing that it is the thwarting of this natural success instinct which is causing the difficulty. The woman who has a home, a husband, or children will find in them full satisfaction of this urge if she happens to belong predominantly to one type. But if she belongs predominantly to either of the other four human types, she will never find complete self-expression in the care of home, husband, or even children. She, like the men of these types, demands direct self-expression. To her, some interest outside the four walls is essential to happiness. Each type always selects the general kind of outside interests most appealing to it. Women and work. Until recent years, home and church work were the only activities in which women could engage and keep the full admiration of the world. Then the Women's Club was born. Various charitable organizations, inaugurated and backed almost entirely by women, came into being. The Prohibition Crusade gave thousands of women an opportunity to emerge and connect with a world cause. Later, the women's suffrage movement for 50 years gave the same opportunity to thousands more. Types and crusades. It will be interesting to you to note how each of these crusades, churches, charitable organizations, prohibition, and women's suffrage, was healed by different biological types of women, and that the rank and file in each consisted chiefly of women of that same type. The Frances E. Willard type still predominates in the WCTU. The Susan B. Anthony type still predominates in the National League of Women Voters. Whenever a woman of one of these crusades joined another, it was for the furtherance of her real interest, as for instance when the WCTU joined the women's suffrage movement. It did so not so much for women's suffrage per se as because it was convinced that women's suffrage would help prohibition. When the Susan B. Anthony type joined the WCTU, it was largely for the purpose of gaining cooperation in the suffrage cause. Type and the subconscious. These facts of the type preference were obtained by 4 years' first-hand observation of thousands of women in both these organizations throughout the United States. Many other surveys shown that women, like men, must have self-expression, and that each invariably chooses out of the possibilities in his or her environment the particular kind of activity always preferred by his type. He chooses more or less automatically because his choice is predetermined by his subconscious. But his subconscious is largely determined by his type. This because the subconscious mind is the hereditary mind, the mind of instinct with which man is born. What he does after he gets here will affect its content, but not its predominant trends. Every individual of every type, temperament, and combination desires self-expression through some kind of outgoing activity. He will be content, congenial, and constructive only in those endeavors which aid in the attainment of his supreme subconscious wish. 3 classes. If his supreme wish is to spend his life in some particular kind of activity, regardless of its tasks or drudgeries, and if he concentrates on this activity, he will become a genius. But if his choice of a vocation is secondary to his wish, that is, if it is selected only as an adjunct to the wish, an aid and abetter of something he desires more, and he gets into such a vocation, he will be in it only one of the many big successes. If he depends his life in a kind of work which calls for traits which he has only in a small degree, he will be mediocre. If his work demands activities that are the opposite of his natural ones, he will be a failure. The subconscious sentinel. In each case, the subconscious mind registers feelings for or against certain vocations and for or against specific lines of work contemplated by the individual. Your preference for or prejudice against any line of work is not an accident, nor a mystery. It is an emotion based in the subconscious unreasoning feeling that this vocation would help or hinder the materialization of your supreme wish. It automatically votes against everything which would interfere with your life's desires, and for everything of any nature, including vocation, that aids and abets them. The genius. The child destined to become a genius has, like every other, a supreme subconscious wish. But this wish differs from that of the average child in two things: intensity and content. The supreme subconscious wish of the vast majority of men, women, and children is to possess things. The supreme wish of the genius child is to do a certain kind of thing. The average supreme wish, though it may be fired with the deepest emotion of which the individual is capable, is much less intense and furious than that of the genius child. These two lead to the third element, opportunity. As inevitably as the desire and ability to sing point the songbird instinctively to an opportunity to unburden his silvery throat. Requisites of genius. So we find that the requisites for the making of a genius are: 1. A desire to do a certain kind of thing, regardless of good or bad consequences. 2. That this desire shall constitute the one supreme subconscious wish of his life, in comparison with which all else is insignificant. 3. That this supreme wish to do a certain kind of thing shall be so intense as to allow no room for feelings of doubt. These things and these only have invariably differentiated the genius from other men and women. These intense inner urges compel the genius to find opportunity for doing the thing he wants to do. He has no peace until he does it. Once started at it, satisfaction permeates his spirit, saturates his soul. He is at the business for which he was created. He has found himself. Finding himself. In this supremest of human achievements, meeting and working with one's self face to face, the genius forgets all else. Is it to be wondered at that such enthusiasm produces great things? Other men give but a fraction of themselves to their work, and none of their subconscious selves to work they dislike. The subconscious of the genius is in tune with the world. Any man who wants to do a thing with the same intensity, the same selfless, concentrated determination, can make of himself a genius. But the average man does not want to do. He only wants to have without doing. He is always expecting to put one over on fate. It can't be done. Are you a genius? A genius is one who cannot be kept away from his work. If nothing can keep you away from yours, if you love its toil and drudgery so much it is play, this means that to do this thing is your supreme subconscious wish. Whatever you supremely, subconsciously wish can and does come true, as you will see in the last lesson of this course. The successful. Those who are not geniuses but the next highest, the big successes in any line, are those whose supreme wish is to achieve a certain goal and who are willing to do anything honorable to reach it, no matter how hard, how humiliating, or how difficult the necessary sacrifices. Such a man or woman will become ultimately a supreme success. For him, as for the genius, there is no question of opportunity. The world is full of opportunity, and he knows it. Such a man says, quote, "With doubt and dismay you are smitten? You think there's no chance for you, son? Why, the best books haven't been written. The chances have only begun. The best score hasn't been made yet. The best race hasn't been run. The best game hasn't been played yet. Cheer up, for the world is young." End quote. The trouble with the unsuccessful is not that they lack ability or opportunity. They lack none of the success requisites save one. And that one they can't get any moment they want it. Willingness to pay the price. Why they make money. The rest of the world wonders and complains at the success of a certain well-known race of people, but it might better be learning a lesson from them. We need not concentrate on the same goal, but we can apply the one big secret of their success to higher ones. That secret is the one stated above, a willingness to make any sacrifice necessary to success in a chosen undertaking. To people of other races, self-complacency, inertia, pugnacity, and 100 other things take precedence of the success desire. But to this one, there is nothing but the goal. You may kick this man down your front steps, but by the time you have closed the door, you will find him smilingly entering at the back. And the chances are he will leave with your name on the dotted line. This type of person, regardless of race, color, nationality, training, education, or environment, is bound to win. He can bear any humiliation and make any sacrifice for success. One thing. A woman who has attained fame and fortune by her own efforts, despite poverty, ill health, ugliness, and other handicaps, was talking not long ago to a small group of old friends whom she had not seen since she was a ragged little girl in the ragged little western town where she grew up. "Let me see, Helen, didn't you wait table once at Smith Central? I seem to remember seeing you there when you were about 15, asked one of the friends. "Yes," she replied, "and the summer before that I washed dishes at the Belvedere, and the summer before that I had a strenuous position as a cook, scrub woman, and maid of all work on a big ranch where 40 men were employed. The rancher's wife had a nap every afternoon and retired at 9. I was up at 5 and did not sit down from that time until midnight. But I had a wonderful time. I needed that $3 a week to buy books and clothes for high school that fall. When fall came, I got another job, working for my board in a family of 7 children, but I had to have an education and thought I was a lucky girl to even get a job." After more mutual reminiscence, one of the women turned to the now successful one and said, "Did you ever select anything and say you would not do that? Didn't you have a powerful aversion to doing some things?" "There was one," the woman replied. "Just one thing I always said, even as a child, that I would not do. I said it over and over, and it was, 'I will not fail.'" Flirting with failure. If you care enough about being a success to stop flirting with failure, you will find the work and the opportunities necessary to make you one. People miss success because they want to eat their cake and have it too. They won't do this, and they're too good to do that. They are above this and superior to that in their youth. At middle age, they are making excuses, and at 60, many are brought to a choice between those very same menial things and the poorhouse. False pride has cheated more people out of success than any other thing in this world. Pride that is real is too proud to drag you, a frazzled failure, through this world of opportunity. Self-tests for success. The content of your own subconsciousness determines your success or failure. To know whether you are going to be a real success, you have but to ask yourself the following questions. 1. Which of these two attitudes predominate in my mind? The determination against certain things or a determination to do certain things? 2. Do I keep my mental eyes fastened on the fears of failure or the certainties of success? 3. Do I think more about the obstructions in my pathway, my troubles, my enemies, my handicaps, my disadvantages, my weaknesses, than the goal I hope to reach? The answer to these questions reveals the content of your subconscious as regards success qualities. If you are wasting your strength against things, people, problems, and life in general, instead of expanding it for the things you desire, you are running your car in the reverse and backing yourself downhill. Faith or fear. If your mind has more fear than faith in it, you are going to lose. Nothing on earth can make any man a winner who doesn't believe in himself. If your subconscious is centered more on thoughts about your troubles, if your talk is full of them, you will have lots more of them. If you are putting into operation a great law, and the law, being immutable, will bring them to you. Forget your enemies. If you burn the candles of memory at the shrine of your enemies, you are going to make more enemies and further embitter the ones you already have. If you think and talk and act at your handicaps, your disadvantages, your weaknesses, you are planting tares and will reap bigger and bigger harvests of these very things as life goes on. For your subconscious content makes or mars your life. If it is destructive, your life will be destructive. There is no way on earth to avoid it, though millions have tricked themselves into thinking they could. The might of mind. What is in your mind comes out in your life. You can't fool the force that rules the universe. That force's decrees that certain causes bring certain results, and they always do. The world calls the successful man an egoist, and he is, but he is seldom a vain egotist. He believes in his own strength and proves he has it. The mediocre and the failures become mediocre and fail because they so overrate themselves as to imagine they can outwit divinity. This is not true for every failure, but of most. The failure ego. You can apply another little test that will tell you whether any man is this type or not. If he is forever expressing envy, jealousy, suspicion, and criticism of the successful, it has but one cause: the resentment of his own disappointed ego. Those who have failed through little fault of their own are never embittered by the successes of others. If you are constantly deriding, pulling down, carping at the good fortune of others, if you call every successful person vain, selfish, or a money grabber, wake up to yourself. Realize that this attitude betrays you to every person who knows anything at all about human psychology. It tells him you are only judging others by yourself, and that you are assuming they must be all these because your wounded vanity demands consolation. Self-revealers. Furthermore, it is well-known fact that the motives you are in the habit of ascribing to others are what you know your own would be in their place. If you cannot see a man successful without calling him vain, it is because you would be vain in his place. If you cannot see a rich man without calling him mercenary, it is because you are mercenary. If you cannot see another on the pinnacle of fame or fortune without thinking he is insincere, it is because you lack sincerity. Subconscious content. All these are indications of your subconscious content. Since your subconscious content determines your success, do you not see why some people have failed? People who worked and slaved and skimped, yes, and went to church. You have got to have the pure air of right attitudes blowing through your mental windows if you want to be successful. Andre Tridden says, "The genius is always unselfish. In the neurotic, egotism is a mask for a sense of inferiority." He and scores of other mental scientists declare that the successful are less vain, less selfish, less deceitful, less mercenary than the failures. Success and constructiveness. But that is not by any manner of means the most important thing upon which they agree. They have found that it is chiefly because of their more constructive mental attitudes that these people have succeeded. Does this not contain a great lesson for every human being? And does it not prove, after all, that regardless of our particular belief or unbelief, the truth was spoken when it was said, quote, "The letter of the law killeth, but the spirit maketh alive." End quote. Your subconscious army. Your subconscious is a great standing army you personally own and control. Through your conscious mind, you are giving it orders every waking moment. If you keep your mind full of destructive thoughts of any nature, whatever you are giving destructive orders to your army, and it will bring to pass in your life the destructive things you order. If you have been getting what you did not want, it was because unknowingly you have been giving your subconscious powers the wrong kind of orders. Function of the subconscious. Your subconscious is wrapped and woven around and over and under and through just one thing: your supreme life wish. It has no function save to see that wish gratified. It never tires, never sleeps, never forgets. It never accepts excuses, never takes no for an answer, never for so much as an instant lessens its concentration on the attainment of your one supreme aim. It gathers from every source within your reach all manner of materials for your use in the furthering of this wish, much of which you never suspect until you start to do the thing you want to do. How the subconscious helps. A man has a deep desire for many years to write a certain book. He is so busy with his everyday affairs, it is years before he sits down to start the manuscript. He thinks he has only enough material for a beginning, but he soon finds that through his intense and genuine interest in this subject, his subconscious has gathered data for a dozen books and hands it out to him. He is amazed to discover how deeply he has thought on this subject and how many illustrations he has at his tongue's end. He cannot write fast enough to keep up with his mind, which is bursting with material for the tangible products. But if this man, instead of deeply desiring for years to write a book, only thinks for years that it would be a good idea to write a book, he will find when he sits down that he has almost no material. He will awaken to the realization that he knows very little about the subject and that what he does know is unorganized, chaotic, and distasteful. When one truly desires to write on a certain subject, He has so much material in his mind he scarcely uses his notes. But when he attempts to write anything against his desires, he gets little from even the most voluminous notes, memoranda, or previous manuscript. These facts and similar ones are known to every person who tries to do anything he has long desired to do. Another test. The condition of your subconscious tells, with unmistakable certainty, whether you are achieving about what you are capable of, whether you are lagging behind or falling far short of what you have the ability to accomplish. You can go far toward determining for yourself which you are doing by the following tests. First of all, in what are you dissatisfied with yourself? And in what way are you constantly conscious of not coming up to your standards? That standard comes from your subconscious and comes because you are capable of doing the very thing you desire to do. Regret a recorder. Subconscious discontent is the method taken by your subconscious to register its disapproval. It never disapproves of you for not doing what you cannot do. The fact that you regret not living up to a certain ideal is the proof that you are fully able to do so. The man who can do wrong, weak things without regret is always a far lower grade man than the one who suffers remorse. The one who knows the keenest suffering and self-discontent is the man who is possessed of the highest powers. Ambition, the acid test. What is the amount of your ambition? If you have little, it is because you have little ability. Ambition to do a thing comes from the capacity to do it and is the demand of that capacity to be brought out and utilized. A thing you have no ambition to do, you have no ability to do. The man who at 30 has no ambition to be an architect will never be an architect. The woman who at 30 has no ambition whatever to sing has no singing ability. The real difference. In this connection, do not confuse the kind of work you really wish to do with the kind of work you imagine would bring you the things you want. For instance, if you really want to sing, for the sheer love of singing and not for its rewards or the things it would bring, you have singing ability. But if the real desire in the bottom of your subconscious mind is not to do the singing for the sheer joy of doing it, but to have the emoluments, honors, glory, fame, or money you think it would produce for you, you have little and perhaps no singing ability. You will never succeed supremely in any line of work or endeavor which you do not truly, deeply, subconsciously, intensely want to do. What you want to do, you have immeasurable power to do, and the power is in proportion to the desire. The sleep test. Science has made one other amazing and illuminating discovery. It is that we crave sleep in proportion as we are unhappy, unhealthy, or unsuccessful. When we are happy, well, and successful, we can stay in perfect health on much less sleep than we require at other times. When we are disappointed, discouraged, depressed, ill, or humiliated, we want to escape from reality, and the subconscious furnishes the sleepiness necessary to bring temporary peace. Napoleon's sleep. Napoleon required sleep wholly according to whether he was winning or losing battles. 3 hours were sufficient when things were going well with him. His biographers and all historians of the period agree that immediately following his most successful battles, he often went several days and nights without any sleep whatever. After his exile, when the light had gone out for him forever, and he knew it, he slept from 10 to 14 hours out of every 24. Another notable example. It is no mystery either to himself or to the psychologist why Thomas A. Edison requires less than 4 hours sleep out of each 24. He is doing what he wants to do. He is achieving in real life the things his subconscious self, his real self, desires. He is living life to the full. His conscious and subconscious minds are working in harmony, aiding and abetting each other as they were created to do. There are almost none of the conflicts, interferences, oppositions, misunderstandings, or warfare which split and disintegrate the conscious and the subconscious minds of the average individual. This fact accounts not only for the success of Edison, but for that of every successful person who ever lived. Unlock your 9/10. No man can succeed through his conscious mind alone, for this conscious mind is so recent an acquisition in human evolution that it is not yet in good running order. The slightest thing sidetracks it. Though far more powerful than we have ever suspected, the conscious mind is incapable of the deep, concentrated activity of the subconscious. It is flighty, erratic, whimsical, superficial, compared to the subconscious mind. The man who puts only his conscious mind on a thing gets only surface results. The saving fact here, however, is that the man who constantly turns his conscious mind on anything secures the cooperation of his subconscious also, and secures it to whatever degree this thing on which he centers his mind promises to fulfill the supreme subconscious wish. In your own case. For instance, you may consciously dislike to be a traveling salesman. You don't like the traveling, the constant absence from home and friends which it necessitates, but you can do them all provided your supreme subconscious wish is to be the star salesman in your district. If your supreme wish is not for anything of this kind, especially if your deepest wish is to succeed at something entirely different, you will never get the cooperation of your subconscious mind in your salesmanship, no matter how long you keep at it, nor how hard you try. And all the years you keep at salesmanship, you will find relief whenever possible in some form of forgetfulness. Sleep and the sleeve of care. The safest and sanest of these forms of forgetfulness is our friend sleep, who knits up the raveled sleeve of care and tries, by giving the stage of the mind over to the subconscious manager, to further our supreme ambitions. It takes the teamwork of conscious and subconscious minds, working in harmony both in sleep and in waking hours, to achieve anything great in life. If we sleep too much, we hold back the other very necessary part of the team, the conscious mind. Sleep as the refuge. As explained in the lesson on mental miracles, whenever you are in trouble of any kind, you tend to relieve the conscious mind of the strain, to lose consciousness. Some types find this relief in long nights of sleep or frequent naps. Others seek it in various kinds of drink, the same types invariably choosing drinks furnishing the same kind of reaction. Others seek forgetfulness in excitement, entertainment, society, travel, and the hundreds of other modern allurements. Any person's craving for these various aids to forgetfulness is in proportion to the degree that reality, actuality, the facts of life are disappointing or disillusioning him. Desire for drugs. Thus the man who is discharged, jilted, financially ruined, or worried takes to drink if he is of a certain type. If he is of another type, the same disappointment turns him toward the deep oblivion brought by drugs, in which case he will again choose the particular kind of drug that appeals to his particular temperament. Every suicide is committed in the effort to escape reality. The fact that the rich, beautiful, and apparently happy destroy themselves shows how little we know of the inner facts of any other human being's life. That dope and drug fiends are often sensitive, keenly intellectual, and idealistic individuals is not accidental. Such organisms, for a combination of reasons, find the harshness of reality too awful to bear. For these reasons, we are short-sighted and narrow when we blame or despise the person who resorts to any of these things. He is in trouble. What he needs and deserves is our sympathy and understanding. Success and sleep. Success, as each individual sees it, comes from the materialization of his supreme subconscious wish. The man who makes $1 million but who has missed the one big thing he wanted does not consider himself successful. But the one who wanted only to make money says when he does it, "I have succeeded." Success is, after all, a matter of personal viewpoint. You may not know what any given individual's standards of success or happiness is, but there is one way in which you can tell with absolute certainty whether he is coming up to the standard he has set for himself, and that is by noting how much or how little of his time he gives to things that bring mental oblivion. The man who is achieving his supreme subconscious wish is so happy in the realization of life that he feels little need of any kind of mental oblivion. Sleep and instinct. Facts gathered over large areas and through long periods of time concerning life of men and women in all countries, in all ages, show that sleep is an instinct, just as is eating or sex, and that it is resorted to, as are other instincts, in the degree as other instincts are undeveloped or unexpressed. Because sleep makes us harmless instead of harmful, as some of the other instincts do, society has smiled upon it and encouraged it, unless it is carried to excess, in which case society, feeling itself endangered by it, will criticize it and apply the much feared appellation lazy to whoever overindulges in it. Carried to excess, sleep is as reprehensible as the excessive expression of any other instinct, but deserves more consideration at our hands, even in its excess, than we have been inclined to give. For no individual anesthetizes his senses save when those senses are suffering. Sleep in future ages. As man learns more and more how to coordinate his two minds, he will be more and more successful and happy. As more and more men and women emulate in their lives the perfect coordination of powers seen in Edison, they will more and more emulate his 4 hours of sleep. And ages hence, when we have learned how to live, the instinct of withdrawal from reality, which came down to us from the ages when reality was almost unbearable, will fade away. When that time comes, there will be no beds, no skyscrapers, honeycombed with bedrooms in which living men retire for hours from reality, and we will use constructively the third of our lifetime which we now spend in sleep. Success and your subconscious. Will you make a success of your job? The answer to this big question must have dawned on you while you have been reading this lesson. At least it has given you such insights into the real reasons for your own successes and failures as you never had before. It must be clear to you now that the things at which you failed were things which, for some reason, lacked the complete cooperation of your subterranean subconscious forces. It is these things, and not just hard work, that make any undertaking a success. It must be equally clear to you why your own triumphs and those of other people often came from less work than you had devoted to the thing that failed. You know now why, in the moment of winning, you could scarcely realize that the winner was really you, You also know why you often felt you really didn't deserve such a lot of credit as people gave you. That the person who did the successful thing was not you, but someone working through you, someone bigger and stronger than yourself. Will you succeed? But to get back to the big question, will you succeed? You will succeed provided your supreme subconscious wish is for success. If your deepest, most absorbing desire is for success, nothing under heaven can keep it from you. If your supreme wish is for something else than success, you will get something else. If it is for mediocre success, you will achieve mediocre success. If it is for supreme, sublime success, you will get it. You will get it because it would then be your supreme subconscious wish. How that wish is to be attained will be made clear in the next lesson. A lesson containing hitherto unpublished and until very recently unknown laws of the most vital, important to every human being. And with this concludes Lesson 6. All right, my dear one, are you liking this? Well, before we go on, discover which great laws of vital importance for every human being, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell if you'd like to get notified of my upcoming video. So come on over. Let's meet each other at the next video.